Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brian Aiming with CMS Wireless and Next Level Safety Training. Today, we want to dive into personal fall arrest equipment and understand the objectives of personal fall arrest equipment and how to use it correctly. But ultimately, we want to understand its limitations. So when we start off by looking at our full body harness, my first question to everybody is, what would you select as the most important part of a full body harness? And yes, there's all the important pieces that protect the skeletal structure of your body are important, but what would you say is the most important? The back D-ring, harness seat, front D-ring, shoulder straps, a lot of important parts there. But when you think about the fall itself, what is the first part of the harness that impacts your body? So in the event a person goes into a fall and your fall arrest system catches you, you want to understand that your leg straps is the first part of a full body harness that impacts your body. So understand that is the first point of impact to your body, ultimately understanding that your harness needs to be worn correctly for it to be effective. So getting into more of the purpose of a personal fall arrest system, you want to understand that it protects the skeletal structure of your body by dispersing the forces across your body. Now, when you get into the true definition of fall arrest, fall protection, which involves the safe stopping of a person once it already has occurred, once a fall has already occurred. So think about that as you attach your equipment to the structure or your anchor point. You have to make sure you understand how long your free fall will be, how long your rip out, tear out distance will be, then account for the rest of your body, a little bit of a harness stretch. And once you add that up, you'll see that there's a possibility that you have fallen 14 to 16 feet. So if you're on a structure that you're attached at an anchor point at 12 feet, it defeats the purpose of fall protection and the true definition of safe stopping of a person once a fall has already occurred if you're going to hit the object below you. So you missed a point of fall protection, but you haven't missed the object below you. So purpose of fall protection, the objectives, understand the safe stopping of a person once a fall has already occurred. So once you dive into understanding not just the objectives and then the important part of leg straps, you want to understand the key elements of how to wear a harness correctly. It's not necessarily about your preference, even though you want to be cautious not to have it too snug or too loose, right? So key elements, when you think about it, you want to start with the correct size harness. It's very difficult if you're 130 pounds and you're trying to get a extra large harness to fit correctly. You're not going to be able to achieve your key elements of a proper fitted harness. So when you dive into these four key elements, you want to break it down to what's the most important part of a harness? Well, your leg straps. So when you attach your leg straps, that's your number one key point of a proper fitted harness is your leg straps. You want to make sure that they are snug, not too restricting, not too tight. But if you can slide your fingers underneath it and not make a fist, it's probably a good gauge rule of thumb right there for you, okay? And then you go into your front D-ring. You definitely don't want your front D-ring closer than 6 to 8 inches from your chin. And the reason this is the fact that if you're using a device, which we call a cable grab or a safety climb that you're attaching for a fall arrest from your front, you don't want that item to, once you go into a fall, to hit your chin at any manner. So that's why you want it at your chest level, which goes the same with the back D-ring. Your back D-ring needs to be between your shoulder blades. You can imagine if the D-ring was all the way up behind your neck and you actually had a fall rest lanyard in the back there, and in the event you went into a fall, it would hit the back of your neck every single time. And the last item is shoulder straps. Many people will get a couple things right and then they don't realize that their shoulder straps, they need to be snug. They can't slide off your shoulder. So leg straps, make sure they are fitted correctly, nice and snug, front D-ring in the right location, your back D-ring between your shoulder blades, and of course your shoulder straps, okay? And so the key word here for having a fitted harness is snug, but not restricting, okay? So let's get into understanding the fall distance. So as we talked about the definition of a fall arrest, personal fall arrest equipment, right? It's the safe stopping of a person once a fall has occurred. And it really defeats the purpose of fall protection if you don't account for your fall space when working on a structure. So when you break it down here, if you're using a 6-foot lanyard here, so you look at A here, shows your length of your shock absorber lanyard. So that's a distance of free fall that you would fall in the event you would go into a fall and you see where the anchor point is attached, you would fall the length of that lanyard. And then you look at the elongation distance, okay? That's the shock absorber that's deploying, right? And per the new Z359 standards, that is 4 feet. So we're ready at 10 feet. And harness will move up on you, what they call it harness stretch in the event of a fall. So that's added another foot. What a major item that people forget is the length of their body. So if you look at D here, from their shoulder to their feet, is a very important length that you definitely want to make sure you account for. So quickly, we are at 6, 4, it's 10, 11, and then we're at 16 here. So, and that's just the end of your body. It's a good rule of thumb to put 1.5 to 2 feet of safety factor to truly understand the limitations of your gear. So with understanding that, that gives you hopefully a lot of insight of what the limitations of your equipment is. So it depends what kind of fall arrest equipment you're using, but you want to read it and understand it. And if you don't understand it, get appropriate training to know how to use it correctly. So, and once you do use it correctly, it leads you into understanding, hey, how do I establish an adequate anchor point for fall arrest? How do I know that in the event I go on a fall, this anchor point's going to catch me? So we use what we call a rule of thumb, and this is classified as a non-certified anchor point. And this is a judgment call from a competent person that he uses, again, his rule of thumb, identifying, hey, this anchor point can hold 5,000 pounds. So that again is a rule of thumb. At no point do you want to put 5,000 pounds on there, but that's the rule of thumb you're going off of. You can kind of see down here where it gets into the OSHA code. Anchorage used for attachment of personal fall arrest equipment shall be capable of supporting at least 5,000 pounds, 22.2 kilonewtons per employee attached. And that is the OSHA 1926-502. Now, there's a lot of items when working on structures that you do not want to attach to. So how I always teach and educate people on finding that appropriate anchor point is that this is a good rule of thumb, is ultimately to say, what is the guaranteed method? What's a method that you will sign off on that you know without a shadow of doubt this is going to work and this is going to hold me, right? So when you attach a fall arrest to a let's say a cell tower, you look at this tower leg is one of the strongest parts. That's what you want to attach to, the strongest part of the structure, which again goes back to a guaranteed method for 100% tie off. In the event you're going to fall, you know that this will catch you. So, and like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of inadequate anchor points if we're directly talking about a cell tower, right? Go to the strongest point, which is the structure itself, or to the tower leg itself on this type of structure. But you want to avoid cable ladders, climbing pegs. There's a lot of inadequate anchor points where you do not want to attach your fall arrest to, okay? Now, they do have out there what we call a certified anchor point, and they can be created because they're engineered to handle the appropriate amount of forces in the event of a fall. So a certified anchor point, which is not as common as a non-certified anchor point, is an engineered anchor point, and the minimum anchor point strength is 3,600 pounds with this. So, and again, it can be established through the manufacturer that has these types of equipment that gets installed by a qualified person. So the last tidbit we want to dive into here is just make sure we understand the difference between fall restraint and fall arrest. So when you think about a restraint, which the best analogy I think is a dog on a leash. And you look at this picture here where they're working on a flat surface, but there is what we call a leading edge. So when you ask yourself, would you rather fall over the edge and be caught, or would you prefer to be prevented from going into a fall? Which the obvious answer, right, is using fall restraint, which it prevents you from going into a fall. So the most common use for fall restraint now is rooftops, making sure you don't go into a fall or fall over the edge. Now, there are definitely scenarios where you're working right on the edge and you still need a fall arrest system. So making sure we understand the difference when you're working on a vertical structure that you have to physically go up and down on, right? You need a catch, because when you're working on a vertical structure, you're maneuvering on a regular basis, positioning off to do your work, but you have to disconnect that positioning to move around the structure at all times. You want to make sure that you have a catch, just like we talked about the safe stopping of a person once a fall has occurred. Okay. Again, fall arrest is your catch to make it an easy way to truly understand. Excuse me. So to wrap this up, know your limitations of personal fall arrest equipment. Know the objectives of how to use a harness correctly. Know your anchor points of identifying a proper anchor point. Know the difference between fall restraint and fall arrest. I do want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to this video. Any questions or concerns, you can contact Brian Imming at CMS Wireless Next Level Safety Training at 224-456-2401. Okay, thank you very much. Everybody have a great day.